welcome back to our channel, guys. I'm sat here with Ryan Moran, and Ryan has been a massive inspiration to me over the last couple of years. He's the founder of capitalism.com. He's created a lot of wealth through several businesses, and I just thought it'd be a great opportunity to really hear from him. And I don't very often have guests on the show, but sometimes you can learn a lot of good stuff from other people's perspectives. So Ryan, firstly, thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show and come down and be interviewed.
Thank you, Sam. I am familiar with your work. I was honored that you reached out. I didn't know that I had been an inspiration to you over the last 2 years, so it's an honor and a privilege to be here and in front of your crew.
Amazing. So firstly, capitalism.com, I mean, straight away, capitalism has a lot of controversial sort of implications with it. I mean, I know in Britain, particularly, I mean, I'm a landlord, so I get a lot of criticism for buying houses because people think that it's greedy. And I think if you had to link a word to capitalism, most people, the average person would say greedy capitalist pig or something like that. So firstly, what does it mean to you, and why did you call your business capitalism.com?
Yeah, well, I bought the domain name for that reason specifically, because it's controversial and because I have been very concerned about what that word means to so many people. Because what that word means to me is service. Capitalism is the system through which we serve one another. And we just make agreements with money. We trade our dollars for goods and services that we need from each other. And it's the way that we incentivize and prioritize what is most important. The purpose of wealth is for us to fund and sustain service to one another. And capitalism is the system through which we do that the most efficiently. And those who do it at the greatest scale and with the most efficiency make the most money, because they need that to sustain that service to one another. So I've hijacked the name and I've hijacked the meaning because that's what capitalism is about. It just so happens that when you serve a great number of strangers at scale, that's how you get rich, Sam. Okay,
so talk me through then your first business. What was your first business? When did you realize that you were an entrepreneur and wanted to make a lot of money?
5 years old. Used to take hand-drawn computer paper, pictures on hand-drawn computer paper. I would draw animals and I would go door to door, knocking on people's door, asking them to buy them for a penny each. My dad was my first customer. He bought 2 of them. So 2 cents right out of the gate. I made 5 cents that night, Sam. But my dad also supplied all of the computer paper and the crayons. So it was 100% profit, 100% margin business.
100% profit. Incredible.
It was pretty incredible. I've rarely been able to match those margins from when I was 5. I actually wanted to be you when I grew up. I wanted to be a real estate investor. And to be honest with you, I'm so excited to chat with you because I still do. It just so happened that the way I thought I was going to fund my real estate ventures was I'll raise a few bucks online. I was going to school to be a pastor. I expected to make $30,000 to $35,000 a year, and story for another day, but I was doing it totally out of guilt, not out of that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I thought maybe I could raise a few bucks online in order to fund my real estate ventures. So when I graduated high school, my friends were getting $20 here, $50 here, and they were buying books and guitar amps. I thought maybe there's a chance that I could use this $1,000 that I got for graduating high school and I could put it to work in an internet-based business. And that's what happened. I spent the entire summer building websites, learning search engine optimization. I was so excited to go to college, Sam, because I would finally have high-speed internet. I was building a little business in these websites from a dial-up modem, 56K modem, hand coding in raw HTML. I went to college and had high-speed internet and got to learn blogging and email marketing and all of these great skills, which led me to launch businesses later in life that I then either used to make a profit or to sell. And now I'm actually in that period now. I think I'm going to be able to achieve my childhood dream of being like Sam and investing in real estate. So
finally getting into real estate.
of how we got there. I'm sure you could help me with some things there.
Well, yeah, of course. And I think, you know what, I really believe that if you want to be in real estate, you need two businesses. You need a business which is going to make you fast pound, and then that's producing you cash. And then you then put that money into something that's going to produce slow pound, which is passive income. And I've heard you speak about this as well. Yeah. So I know that I'm preaching to the converted, but it's so huge because if you can't invest in real estate unless you've got cash. Now, you can make cash through being a property entrepreneur, which is doing things like, rent to rents and packaging and selling deals, wholesaling. But you've chosen to go down the online you've chosen to go down the online route and have absolutely killed it in that, made millions of pounds. And I think as well, every business pretty much today should be an online business anyway. So whilst I see myself as a property investor, I'm very online as well. So the things you talk about, SEO and all this stuff, it's stuff that I've had to learn too. So talk me through what is an internet business. I know you've helped thousands of people also set up internet businesses. So what does that even mean, an internet business? Isn't every business an internet business?
Close today, yes. But the way that I have helped hundreds of people build $1 million businesses, which is kind of my claim to fame, where I'm really strong, what I do better than anyone else in the world is I can give pretty much anyone the roadmap to having $1 million online business. And Sam, it's basic math. It's third grade math. It looks like this. If you have 4 products that sell 25 sales a day, that's 100 sales a day. And at a $30 price point, that's $3,000 a day in sales over the course of a year is about $1.1 million. And so what I help people do is I help them plug in the pieces of that formula. What are your 4 products going to be? How do we get them to 25 sales a day? And let's maintain a $30 price point, at least, at minimum. And hopefully we can work up from there. And that allows my students and the people who follow me to have a clear roadmap to building $1 million business. And then they can take those profits and put them into real estate, as they probably should. But the beauty of the model of building a business versus just having a blog or doing SEO or having clients is when you have a real business that sells real stuff to real people, that is a business that can be sold. So I was actually talking with a friend of mine who said, there are only 2 people in this world who have this game figured out. It's the e-commerce people and it's the real estate people, because they're the only people that have the ability to have income and work towards an exit. I thought that was a really interesting comparison. So they were saying your world and my world is the only place where they can get this.
And probably both, really. I mean, if you can do both, then, and I think as well, focus is really important. I know I've heard you speak about focus, and if you try and chase every shiny penny, you'll end up catching nothing. But at the same time, I think having a fast pound business and a slow pound business that run alongside one another, I think is a great model to have. And if you look at the Sunday Times Rich List in the UK, there's a lot of folks that have got a trading business and then a real estate business. And I think that model really works. So talk to me then about your first, you said you had your first business, or when you first started to be an entrepreneur, you were a kid. What was when did you make your first million? How did you make your first million? What was the product?
Yeah. So I made my first 6 figures a year blogging and doing affiliate marketing. And this is where I started to develop the skill set of managing websites, building websites, selling websites, realizing that these digital businesses could be scaled and sold, realizing people were flipping them all day long. You could buy content sites, or you could buy affiliate marketing sites. You could buy all of these small, tiny websites, get them profitable and sell them. Well, that was really interesting. But where I made my first million, Sam, was when I finally said, it's time for me to have a real business. I make my cash taking on clients or doing email copywriting or selling affiliate products. That's all great. It's all fine. But in the same way that you say you need to have your slow cash and your fast cash, for me, I was making lots of fast cash, and to the tune of a six figure amount in my 20s, which was amazing. But I did not have the slow part of it, which is why I got into this game in the first place. So I wanted something that I could build and sell someday. And that's what led me to sell physical stuff. The beauty, I call it the perfect business, because the physical product. Once you send it to their house, you're done. You've fulfilled all of your obligations. You make it once and you can sell it an infinite number of times. Now, I was a new dad. She's now 6.5, but my daughter had just been born. And I was starting to develop the early stages of a dad bod. And so I started what I called the Anti-Dad Bod Plan, where I went on this journey of being a really fit dad. And during that adventure, I realized that there were a bunch of supplements and a bunch of foods and a bunch of behaviors that I took on that I didn't have before. It was things like drinking pre-workouts or taking creatines or taking a testosterone booster or a sleep supplement. And I started to notice that I was interested in all of these things. And I developed a line of products that I wanted that matched that same desire. And so the first step that I walk people through when I'm talking about business is you first choose your customer. Who is it that you're serving? In my case, new dad in his 20s who wanted to be fit. And then the second step, what are the 4 products that person buys right out of the gate? And for me, protein powder, pre-workout, testosterone booster, sleep supplement, multivitamin, and on and on and on it goes. And so I started following that formula based on exactly what was going on in my life. I choose my person. I choose those 4 products that I would buy as that person. And then we work to get them to 25 sales a day. It took a year, 12 months to have that business selling $1 million a year. And at that point, my partner and I looked at each other and said, I think we got something here. And so that was the first million. It was also the first 10 million. And then we sold that business when it was doing about $10 million a year. So that was the first million and how we got it.
So that's like a health and fitness type business then, but online.
It was. I also started a few other companies at that time. I had a yoga products business that I sold after about a year of running it. It was just good timing. But that same formula of 4 products, 25 sales a day, it applies to all spaces. And a lot of our students use it in yoga, or they use it in food, or they use it in swimming, or they use it in whatever hobby or passion they're about. And then they apply that formula to make it a business.
So interesting that the kind of the foundation of that was creating the product, right? But you created a product based on what you thought you wanted.
That's right.
So it's like, what do I want? I'm a little bit overweight. I've got a dad bod. What do I want? And then you create a product that's almost a great product for you. And then you think, okay, well, how can I now market that and find other people? Because if I want it, other people will. And I think that's a really, and again, in any business, you can transfer that. Like one of the things that where I actually made my first million, the strategy, and it started off, I started it in buy-to-let, buying properties. How I made my first million was packaging investments and selling those investments to other investors. And I think, you know, when I was thinking, okay, I'm going to start selling deals to other investors, I was selling them deals that I wanted, but I couldn't afford them. So I was finding property investments that I wanted, but I couldn't afford to necessarily buy an unlimited amount of them. Or even I did buy something similar. I'm like, man, this property is so good, but there's lots others like that, but I can only afford to buy one. So why don't I package the others and sell them and get a fee? And I did that. I sold hundreds of deals and became a millionaire by age 25. And that was sort of my first product. So again, similar in terms of creating a product that you want for yourself and then packaging it and selling it to to other people.
You know, it's funny is you probably called what you did wholesaling. It was kind of wholesaling on steroids.
Kind of, a little different, but it's similar. So wholesaling is when you lock a price and get paid the difference. Whereas what I'm doing is I'm just finding an opportunity and negotiating the price. I'm never owning it. And then I'm just passing the opportunity on to somebody.
Yeah, and the very interesting crossover here is in the physical product space, it's almost the same, where we're creating a product, we're creating something that we want, and then we're just selling that at scale to thousands or millions of people. You had a one-to-one model, which was your fast cash. And it's kind of the same in the e-commerce or physical products world, is you make the product once and then you list it for sale. And you're not the one making the product. You have a manufacturer that's making the product. Sure. And then it's being shipped by Amazon or by Shopify or your fulfillment house. So it actually is a very similar mindset for that quick cash method or for that cash flow business that you can then parlay into real estate or your other ventures.
Question then for you, Ryan. Do you think that people are born entrepreneurs, or do you think they're made? Because you told me you had your first business at 5. Same as me. I started out young, as a teenager, doing paper rounds. Are entrepreneurs born or are entrepreneurs made? What do you reckon?
I think it's the exact same as an athlete. Some athletes are born with the physical makeup for being an athlete, but they don't necessarily become athletes until that craft is created, until they are working hard to hone that craft. Entrepreneurs are exactly the same. You can have the natural skill set of an entrepreneur, but you are not that until that is honed. And in the same way, you could be born without the raw ingredients and outwork everybody else and become a successful athlete. Muggsy Bogues was, 5'3" or whatever he was, and he was still an all-star basketball player. Whereas in the same way, in entrepreneurship, you cannot have all of the raw ingredients and still be very successful. The beauty about entrepreneurship, though, is there are lots and lots of ways to play the game. So I do think that you can be born with natural skill sets that help you succeed in the marketplace, but because entrepreneurship is a custom path, you're creating the game, you're defining the rules of this game, you can build the business around whatever your craft is, whatever you are best at. For example, I am a natural communicator. I love to write. I love to speak. If there's a camera, put me in front of it. If there's a stage, put me on it, Sam. That is what I love to do. It's my natural skill. And so I've built a business with my average entrepreneurship skills. I've built that around what my real craft is, my real ability to connect with other people and to communicate. So entrepreneurship, you are born with some raw skills, but most of the craft is built throughout your life based on the things that you practice and the skills that you amplify. That's what I think about that, Sam.
I think that's a really good answer. I think so. So basically, it's a bit of both. And if you've got the natural ability as well, that will take you so far. But you need training and mentors and hard work and craft and skill and dedication. But if you are born with no entrepreneurial flair whatsoever and you're 47 years old and you're working a 9-to-5, it's not too late for you because you can still become a great entrepreneur with the right persistence and dedication.
Well, let me say something to what you just said there. Since you said 47, you can still become an entrepreneur. I have a student who in his early 40s, he bought one of my trainings back in 2013. 2013, Sam. I was new at this game. And I said, hey, I'm going on a new journey here, a new adventure. I don't know how it's going to go, but I'm creating a small little mastermind for us to go through it together. And he was on my email list and he bought whatever it was. It was like $2,500 or something. And he was the first person to buy. And I called him up and we had a nice little chat for a few minutes. And he had just lost everything. He had just had his last business went under. He had a terrible breakup with his partners. He had lost all of his money. He had been disgraced by his family. And I helped mentor this guy for about the first 2 years of his business in his early 40s. But then we lost touch, Sam. And I didn't hear from him for several years. One day in 2020, I opened up an investment fund for e-commerce businesses that come from my audience. My book's been pretty successful. My podcast's been pretty successful. And so I have deal flow from a lot of businesses that are interesting to me. And I raised a fund to invest in them. And he invested in the fund, which was awesome. But, I also didn't know that he had been successful enough to invest in this fund, right? We had lost touch for a few years. So he kind of came out of the woodwork, invested in the fund, and he came to the first meetup. Now, remember, this is a man who had lost everything in his early to mid 40s and was starting completely over, learning from a kid who was 28, 29 at the time. And we lost touch. He shows up at my house for the first fund meetup. And he looks me in the eye and he says, hey, did I ever tell you what happened with your brand or with his brand? And I said, no, I assume it was modestly successful. You're here. And he said, well, I had a 9-figure exit. I sold it for over $100 million.
Oh, geez.
Over $100 million, again, had nothing in his early to mid 40s. He's like 43, 45-ish. So you can screw everything up
into
your 40s and then have something hit and be just fine. And all of that prepared him perfectly for that opportunity.
That's huge, Ryan. 9-figure.
I've experienced my own set of setbacks, especially in the last 2 years. COVID, everybody had a hard time in the last 2 years. COVID hit some of my businesses. I had a restaurant back in Ohio that I closed. It hit some of my other businesses that were not directly related to what I'm talking about today. So I have to remind myself of this too. You know, I'm 34, and sometimes I think like, man, gotta get a move on. I gotta hurry up. And so remembering some of those stories of people who didn't start until their 40s, it reminds me how much time we have. I have an acquaintance. His name is Trevor Blake. He wrote a great book called 3 Simple Steps. Trevor Blake was not an entrepreneur at all until his mid-40s. And then he had 3 9-figure exits in his first 10 years, hundreds of millions of dollars in those 10 years, because he had the maturity, the network, and with the readiness for then it to hit. I love stories like that.
You know what though, as well, I see a lot of people making a lot of money these days with Bitcoin and crypto and stuff like that. And it kind of sometimes almost worries me when someone, because I meet these kids, you know, that are like, oh, I just made £250,000, because I don't feel like they've actually got the wherewithal, the resilience to actually make money and run a business. And obviously I'm really pleased for them. It's great. But sometimes I just think, man, when that £250,000 goes or whatever, maybe you'll continue to make loads, and that's fine. But I know if you drop them butt naked in the middle of London with nothing, then they wouldn't have a. I mean, I've done that many times as a social experiment. I've literally just gone, locked myself off from my contacts, and dropped myself in the middle of nowhere. I've done it like 7 times. Beautiful. Just to prove to myself, I've still got it, man.
Yeah.
You know, just to prove to myself, you can drop me, and it makes me just think, I don't care if I lose everything. If I'm in a caravan tomorrow and I've lost all of my millions and I've got nothing, actually, you know what? It doesn't matter. And so many people right now are scared because of the pandemic and everything that's gone on, and they're super worried about what, but it's like, well, hang on, if you're a real entrepreneur and you know how to make money and you know how to add value and you know how to sell and you know how to market and you know how to, then you never have to worry about anything ever again. If you made £250,000 on Bitcoin, I mean, good for you, man. But that doesn't really mean anything about your character or your resilience. So it's just interesting the way people. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm missing something.
Well, Sam, I think money is a lot like alcohol. It just amplifies whoever you are. If you give a generous person a couple of drinks, it doesn't take long until they're just giving money away, until they become a car for you and money for you. It makes them more of who they are. If you give an extrovert who loves the camera, if you give me a couple of drinks, I don't get quiet. Okay. I want to be the life of the party, Sam. And money is exactly the same way. Yeah. If you give a person who's insecure £250,000 and they made it in Bitcoin, chances are they're actually more scared inside. If you give somebody who is short-sighted, has short-term thinking, you give them a lot of money, they will waste it on short-term things. So money is an amplifier. It makes who we are louder. And so this is why I say entrepreneurship is the greatest self-development program on the planet. Right. Because all of your flaws get exposed when there's money, and then you're the one left with yourself, your skill set, and what you do next. Right. And so I don't get worried about all the people making money in Bitcoin or whatever it is. I do wonder who they will become. I do wonder how it will impact who they become and how it will help them evolve, because we're all evolving. We're all changing, hopefully for the better. And I think a lot of the fast money that you're seeing move right now is just accelerating that process.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I guess, you know, if you've built something up there, if you've built a business up, you can build it again. If you've made money in Bitcoin, can you do it again if you lose it? I don't know. You know,
Right.
I know that the strategies that I do and I teach and I've done for years, I can just keep doing it over and over. What about you? If you were stripped naked and dropped in a random state and you had nothing, and no connections, no money, just your knowledge and your experience, what's the first steps? What are you going to do? What's your first 7 days going to look like?
The first thing that I always tell students who are starting over again, and I still do this process every single time I'm at a reset or in a new chapter, or I feel like I'm starting over, is I make a list of 10 people in my life that I want to be around more in this next chapter. Now, if you lose your connections in this experiment, Sam, then you'd have to go meet 10 people first. That would be step one. But once you've got 10 people who, this is the person who drives a nice car and goes to your church. This is the person who is a well-established community member that owns a business in town. These are the people within your network or within your sphere of influence that you'd like to be around more often. And I drop them a handwritten thank you card. And it follows a little template. The template always goes something like this. Hey, so-and-so, I just wanted to let you know how you've impacted my life. As a result of watching you do X, Y, and Z, I've made the decision to start my own business, go out on my own, or whatever it is that you're deciding to do. I'm so thankful that you did X, Y, and Z. And if I can ever be a resource for you, I would consider it a privilege. Thanks so much. Sign your name. And what that does is it starts to build the network. And then when that person inevitably reaches out to you and says, thanks for the card, meet them up for coffee, get on a phone call, go see them, whatever it is. And always ask about them. What are they up to? What are their mindsets? What are their beliefs? And I've never made it all the way down 10 people and not had new opportunities open up for me. Because when they inevitably turn it around to you and say, what's going on with you? You just say, I'm in transition. I'm looking for my next thing. I've never had that not lead to new opportunities. And in all business, it comes down to connections and your ability to serve other people. So that's why my process always starts with, okay, I'm going to start with who are the people? How do I connect with them? And then how do I think about serving them rather than myself? And that always breeds results. It always brings in opportunities. And then you work really hard. You work like hell at those opportunities wherever they lead you. So my answer is not I would start investing in real estate in that area, or that I would start another e-commerce business, or I'd start blogging again, although I would probably document every single step of my turnaround period. My answer is I would find the connections in that state or in that part of town. And then I would start building that network and start giving to those people. And then, yes, I would probably start a blog and document the whole thing, which would make my network build that much faster.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. So it's kind of almost tapping into other people's businesses and what they've got and seeing how you can serve.
Right.
One of the things I really believe is I believe that a good relationship is always better than a good deal. And even in real estate, sometimes I'll be going to view a property and I might think, is that property actually the best? Is this going to be the best investment? But I think, you know what? I'm not viewing a property. I've got an appointment with a real estate agent right now. And even if the property sucks, having an opportunity to share with them why it sucks and what I'm actually looking for and what could be better, they'll probably end up saying, oh, actually, come down the road with me 15 minutes. Let me show you this. It's just about getting in front of people and letting people know what you're looking for and what you're about and what you're trying to do, rather than chasing the money. It's about trying to build those, connections.
I'm so glad you said that, because if we thought as an entrepreneurial community, if we thought more about service rather than systems, we would grow so much faster. We love to obsess about what's the best way to invest in real estate, or what's the best way to sell my product on Amazon, or what's the best system to make $100,000 a year working no more than 10 hours a week. Yeah. We prioritize those and we obsess over those. But the real answer is the best system is through serving other people. Because you're having a core group of people that we are in service to, whether it is agents or it is tenants or it is customers. The person who serves the most makes the most. That is the best system.
But that comes back to what we started talking about at the beginning, which is capitalism. Because that's what capitalism is. Yes, it is. And that's why when people get upset with me for buying a house and breaking it up room by room, oh, you ruined it. It's like, well, hang on. My house is my product. and my tenant is my customer. To win in real estate, which is a business, you need to think, what do people want? People want affordable accommodation. They don't want big empty. So, okay, so I'm going to buy a house, break it up, and give people what they want. And as a result of giving people what they want, I'm going to get paid for it, which is what capitalism in its essence. And I'll tell you something really interesting as well. I know you're interested in debates and stuff, but I have tried so hard to have somebody come on my YouTube channel and have a really healthy debate about capitalism versus communism.
Oh, invite me next time, Sam. I have a really high conversion rate on turning people from communists and socialists into capitalists. Invite me next time.
But I've never had a single person that's agreed to have the conversation.
Oh.
Never. I've never, ever. And there's whole channels, there's whole channels where they will say they're communists or socialists. And that's great. And I don't necessarily think they're bad people at all. I think they probably have got, in some ways, very similar values to me and probably would to you. But I just fundamentally disagree with their logic. Sure. But no, they'll never come on the show. But I think it's just interesting. So,
Sam, I think we could collab on this. I think between our collective networks, we can make this happen. If you're watching this on YouTube, on Sam's channel, and you want to see this debate happen, let us know in the comments and we'll find a way to collab on this one. We'll make this happen.
It would be great because I'd love to. I think the best way to learn is to debate. And sometimes I'll have a really strong opinion and then I've had someone go, I want to debate you on that. And then I'm like, whoa, hold on. Let me just really research this properly now. Because it's all good having an opinion until you have to debate it live on YouTube and then you research properly and come with the facts. I had a debate with somebody last year about rent control, which is should our mayor, Sadiq Khan, should the mayor of London cap rents because the Londoners were in fact in New York they did this. In New York they capped rents. And they said rents can't go above a certain amount. And it absolutely distorted the market. It ruins the housing market out in New York. And, I was like, rent control is ridiculous. You should have a willing buyer and a willing seller. Trying to control the rents is... And then someone said, I'll debate you on that. And then suddenly I was like, whoa, I needed to think this through now, really serious. And I came to the conclusion of, I didn't change my mind, but I had a much stronger, more well thought through, balanced, articulated opinion, which is a really good thing. So you debate a lot about politics and religion and all kinds of stuff. What is it that makes you enjoy doing the debate so much?
Well, Sam, first of all, here is how you know you're ready to debate something. When you can give a thoughtful argument for both sides and someone else can't tell where you stand on it. That's how you know you're ready to debate. So I love the fact that the first thing that you did when someone challenged you to a debate is go study their side of it. Yeah. And that gives you the firepower to be able to overcome a lot of their beliefs and their objections. So when you can argue, this is where I think as a society, we have it so wrong. This side is yelling, this side tries to yell louder, this side marches and this side riots. And it becomes a shouting match and no one is listening to one another. The way we bridge the divide, especially in a debate, is by building bridges that look like listening to one another. And when someone feels heard, they are very likely to be persuaded. If you can go over the bridge to their side of the argument and truly understand it, hear where they are coming from, then they are more likely to be persuaded. Not all the time, but much more likely. That's how you change minds. So what I love about the debate process, whether it's about politics or it's religion, is because most people just yell. Where I have a unique skill set is being willing to come over to the other side and understand where they're coming from, understand that side of the debate. And that's why I'm very confident in my ability to persuade people because of the empathy that is there. Right now, we say that we're divided, like the right and the left, or the Democrats and the Republicans, or whatever, pick it. We say we live in a divided world. I say we have higher demand for unity than ever. And so I like to go into the middle And I like to build bridges there. And debates are a fun way for me to do that because I think there are very few people right now who are willing to build bridges.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I'm going to have to write that one down. What did you say? You said that we're not divided more than ever. We
have higher demand for unity than ever. We don't like being divided. We don't like the shouting matches. Yeah. We just think it's the other side's fault.
Yeah.
We don't like that there's a divide between us, but most people will say, well, the reason we're divided is because they are XYZ. But they don't realize that they're doing it right now. When you say when you say it's their fault, you are now creating two teams. That is the divide. So the way through that is to go over and understand.
Yeah.
Is to have empathy, is to build that bridge. And then you are persuasive. Then you can be heard. Seek ye first to understand. Only then can you be understood.
Yeah, it's great.
And that's why I love the debate process. It's an opportunity for me to flex that muscle and to do my part in bridging the divide.
Yeah, love that. And again, when you're debating, the purpose of a debate is not to win, right? The purpose of a debate is to learn and to grow and to develop. Yes. You've got an interesting take as well. I know the last couple of years has been crazy. In fact, the last few years, just generally in the United States, but also across the world, we've had the pandemic, which has hit everybody. Lockdowns. I think the UK is probably one of the laxest countries in the world right now. Though there's no mask wearing.
You just lifted all the restrictions, right?
Completely lifted. No mask wearing, no social distancing. In fact, as from next month, even if you catch COVID, you don't have to self-isolate. So we've literally lifted pretty much completely. That's caused a lot of division, or has it? Or has it caused a higher demand for unity?
I think that creates a higher need for personal responsibility, which is what we needed in the first place.
What do you mean?
When you have the ruling of there's no more restrictions, now we are not relying on rules to keep us safe.
Yeah.
We are now relying on personal responsibility of making good decisions and deciding what is best for us and our families, which is what is usually the solution to most problems. People taking personal responsibility for their impact on their family and their impact on their communities as well. What I see from the perspective of the founder of capitalism.com, what I see happening is we are seeing the ineptitude of government in full display. We are seeing the problem of what happens when you give government too much control and the fallout that happens. And we do this across the board. I mean, Republicans gave Trump unheard of power, and he used it. And now that pendulum is swinging, and the Democrats, those on the left, have that same power that we gave to Republican presidents, and they're able to use it. Now, what happens when government has too much power is they mess things up. They spend into incredible deficits. They print too much money. They create programs that don't work. And what I think we are seeing right now is we are seeing on full display how that ends up. And it looks like the public institutions failing. The reason why Bitcoin and cryptocurrency has taken off so much in the last 2 years is because it's the first privatization of something that was previously controlled by governments, money supply and currency. Now, I was a Bitcoin doubter until 2020. Why is that? Because 2020 was the final nail in the coffin of seeing how governments use and manipulate money. And so they increased demand for there to be a Bitcoin-like alternative. And I'm not married to it being Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency, but Bitcoin seems to be winning. And that is a response to poor government policy. And this happens throughout history. We see governments get control, and then that breaks apart, and you have private institutions come up and they be a better way forward. We're going to see that in healthcare next. We have private healthcare organizations creating solutions to diseases that have plagued us for centuries now be on the cusp of being affordable for the masses and being done with. The advances that are happening in things like gene sequencing and gene editing that can literally just edit out diseases is coming from the private markets that could never happen with just government oversight. And so we see these opportunities and these transitions throughout time where government is in control, they mess things up, they drop the ball, and entrepreneurs and capitalists pick up the ball and they run with it. Yeah. And we're seeing that across the board on full display at an accelerated rate right now because of the failures of government over the last 2 years. And so I am extremely optimistic right now, Sam. I'm extremely optimistic, not because I want governments to fail and not because I want us to go through growing pains, but because I know that capitalism works. Because I know that even if you try to restrict freedom, that freedom is a more powerful force. So if you try to restrict freedom, it just increases the demand and the momentum for there to be more freedom. If you restrict people's ability to trade through socialism or capitalism, it just increases the demand and the desire for people to voluntarily trade. It's just like if you restrict speech, you will get people protesting and yelling even louder. You cannot restrict freedom for a long period of time. You can push it back slightly and try to hold the line, but eventually that breaks because the demand for freedom and capitalism and entrepreneurship and creation is too strong. And so I think we are about to enter a new golden age of creation and opportunity and capitalism that will be faster and cheaper and more accessible to everyone than ever before. And so I think we have fanned the flames of the desire and the need for unity and capitalism and kindness and empathy. And I am very optimistic about where that leads.
Yeah, that's great. Really, really powerful and interesting. And, you know, I think I wholeheartedly agree with you, actually. And when the government dropped the ball, that's when we rise up. Entrepreneurs have to rise up. And interesting what you said about private healthcare as well. I think we have the NHS in Britain, and it's interesting as well with capitalism, because if you're an absolute all-out capitalist, where does that leave things like regulation, minimum wage? Like, do you believe in minimum wage?
I think that the minimum wage should not be raised. I think that I have an economics background, and so did quite a bit of studying into minimum wage, and kind of the most effective way, in my opinion, to have a minimum wage is to have a minimum wage that is below market rate. So you can have a minimum wage as long as it's below market rate, meaning people aren't laid off at all as a result of there being a minimum wage. If someone wants to accept a wage that is less than minimum, there should be a private agreement between employer and employee. Of course, it's marketed as something that is a protection for employees, but I actually think it creates more harm. So you don't really believe in minimum. You don't really believe in it at all, then, do you? If you think that they could have a private agreement where you can work below minimum. When I'm running for office, I'm not running on a campaign of getting rid of the minimum wage. Right? It's like I don't think we need a massive overhaul. I think on our list of problems, it's like 37th. Yeah. If it's that high. It's interesting though. It's an interesting point. What would happen if there was no minimum wage at all? If it was a complete free market? Be interested to see whether that would end up being a good thing or a bad thing. This is what would happen. Some people would fall through the cracks, but most people would work harder, would create more, would be more incentivized to have personal responsibility, and the wealth that would be created could then be given to private organizations that take care of those who fall through the cracks. Yeah. This is another area in which personal responsibility is more effective than government. With government, we tax the money, take 50% and try to create this safety net that is inefficient and bloated. But if individuals were putting that money into private organizations instead, you would have a much deeper, wider, kinder, more empathetic security blanket. That safety net would be much stronger because the incentives to take care of one another are much stronger on a one-to-one basis than on a national level.
Yeah, and again, it's like, if we rely on the government to look after people, if we think it's the government's job to look after the poor and to look after, then the job doesn't really get done. And I think I like what you say about kindness as well. You see, I believe in capitalism, but I consider myself a compassionate capitalist, a kind capitalist, someone that free market but cares about the people. So that communism says that the people are too dumb and stupid to have the money. Let's give it to the state. Let's give it to the government and just trust that they distribute it. Something that actually, an analogy I use to people that don't really understand capitalism and aren't sure is, I'll say, imagine if you had a school and the school said, it's not fair that some of the pupils are getting A stars and some are getting Fs. And the ones that get Fs haven't then got the same opportunity as the kids that get A stars. So what we're going to do is we're going to give everyone their exams, and then we're going to add up everyone's grade, and we're going to divide it amongst the number of pupils of the school. So that way, everybody, in theory, should get a C. And this is the thing. In theory, everyone should get a C. But what will happen is the kids won't be incentivized to even try. So suddenly the A stars will just be like, oh, wow, whatever, I'm just going to get, this is all going to be pulled together. So it kills ambition. And actually the standard of the grade goes down significantly for everybody. And in the same way with communism, if we say, let's just add up all the money, give it to the government, let them distribute it. Well, even if the government did distribute it fairly, which they wouldn't and historically don't, but even if they did distribute it fairly and evenly amongst the people, you've just killed entrepreneurship. There isn't enough that money goes around. You've got to be a reservoir. So, I think people, hopefully, if people can't understand that, then I don't really understand what else really to say other than that business is good and money follows value, and entrepreneurs being encouraged and championed surely is a great thing. So I'm not sure how much of it might come from people just being upset or jealous that they haven't got money and wishing, I wish that the government just took it off them and gave it to me.
It comes from fear. It comes from fear and our lack of confidence that we can produce. It comes from the fear of being controlled, the fear of a loss of freedom. It comes from the fear of thinking I'm not going to be okay and I don't have the confidence that I can produce. Unfortunately, when you rely on government to fix that problem, you never solve the wound. That's why personal responsibility is at the crux of capitalism. Yeah. Because personal responsibility for you to improve at your skill set, for you to create more, for you to take responsibility for the results that you create, for you to be in service to other people. That is the crux of capitalism. Whereas when you just have government intervention come in and solve the problem, you disincentivize personal responsibility, which creates less ability for people to grow and give and serve. And so you perpetuate the problem rather than solving it. The real solution is more capitalism, more freedom, more entrepreneurship. It's going on that journey of the best personal development tool on the planet, which is taking a risk and becoming an entrepreneur and creating something and going out in the marketplace and being told no, and then adjusting and getting beaten up a little bit and getting better and improving and being committed to your own growth. We disincentivize that.
When I was in 2018, I was in Uganda and I had a really serious accident. I fell down a waterfall, broke my leg, serious accident. And I went down to the hospital, got taken to the hospital, and the Ugandan hospital, this is a developing country, and they said to me, before we'll even look at your leg or anything, how much money you got? Because you're gonna have to. And for me, that's not in the UK. We have the National Health Service, we have the NHS, and I remember thinking, I'm really grateful for the NHS, because there was people that were coming into the hospital in Uganda that were being sent away because they didn't have enough money, and some of them were in a far worse state than I was, and had car accidents, really bad way, just been sent away from hospitals. Basic human needs weren't being met because they didn't have the money. So in England we have the NHS service, which is welcome to anyone, even if you're a foreigner, even if you're an illegal immigrant. If you fall down and are sick or get hit by a car, They take you and they'll treat you and give you the care that you need. But presumably you don't think that's a good concept. You're not in favor of an NHS.
I'm not an expert in how the NHS works or in Ugandan economics. Yeah. I know obviously a lot more about how it works where I live, but I do know, but I do consider myself well-versed in economics, and basic economics says that the incentives are greater when the numbers are smaller, when the focus is smaller. For example, I am more incentivized to care about what's going on in my community than in 3 states away or 3 countries away. So the more that you can keep the focus on the local level or on the community level or the private level, the higher the quality, the lower the costs, the faster the speed, the easier in which we can get everyone in agreement on something. So when we turn over healthcare to government control, you can have what we call equity, which means everyone gets it, but you do not have quality. You have lesser quality. Yeah. So Charlie Munger has an interesting take on this. His belief is that you can have a very base level government plan that gets removed as the market creates more efficiencies. So if you have the ability, if you have the willingness, the cojones to reduce government involvement as the marketplace creates more incentives and more products and lower costs, then government can be a pacifying system. It can have the ability to create new benefits and spearhead things. It can have that ability. The trouble comes in when we are resistant to reducing that or removing that as the market creates new programs. So this is where I disagree with some of my colleagues in the capitalist side of things, where they think there should be no government at all. I think government can lead the way with areas where the marketplace is not yet as efficient, as long as you are willing to back that up over time. We in the States are terrible at this. I hope that you are better at this because you're working with a more localized area, right? So with the United States, we have 400 million people across 3,000 miles. To come up with one system that fits everyone would be a disaster. But if you look at states that have their own systems individually, they're very popular within their own states. So you can have a system in which each state has their own program that goes smaller and smaller over time as the marketplace creates more products and services. But if you were to create a national healthcare service here in the States, it would crumble because there's too many people. There's too many different cultures here. It's over too wide span of a square mile area. And so you don't have the same incentives. This is why, in my opinion, the UK is able to do it much more efficiently than us. But either way, I think that you should be able to reduce the size of government as the marketplace gets more efficient.
Yeah. What are the taxes like in Texas?
Well, thankfully, in Texas, we have no state income tax, but we are just ripped apart with property taxes. Now, this is okay with me because in economics, property taxes are the least bad type of tax. And I like for people to feel how much tax they are paying, because now they have an incentive to push back against them. And property tax is one of those where you feel it directly. You feel it because you're paying it every month or every year. You write a check and it doesn't go away for as long as you live there. If your income comes down, you are still paying the property tax. And so property tax is one of the lesser bad taxes because it's felt the most, which means that people will push back against it the most.
But zero income tax in Texas.
Zero income tax on the state level. We still, of course, have federal taxes. But we do not have an income tax in Texas.
See, it's interesting how in America, the taxes are so different from state to state. Like in California, I mean, Grant Cardone, who, I'm a good friend of Grant, moved state over it. He moved to Miami just for taxes, which is a really interesting concept.
That's right. California, I think, just raised theirs to like 22%. 22%. on top of federal taxes, which are already 36% or 38%.
I mean, pretty much. When you just about understand taxes and you understand how many times you get taxed from how many different angles, it is something. And I like paying taxes. I think paying taxes is a good thing. I think that putting a percentage of what you earn aside, because I believe in the NHS and things like that. What I don't agree with is where they'll say you should just take away so much that it means what's the point of even trying to run a business. But I'm very happy to pay taxes. But you need to understand tax if you, as an entrepreneur. You need to understand how to not evade it, but how to be creative and pay as
well, especially to delay it, because as entrepreneurs, we are taxed more than anyone, and entrepreneurs need as much dry powder as possible to go spearhead the next chapter. Entrepreneurs do not have the security blanket that other people have. We're putting everything on our backs and saying, hey, follow me.
Yeah.
So entrepreneurs need to at least know how to delay taxes to a later date. I always say the best time to pay taxes is later, always later. Yeah. If you can defer it, if you can delay it to free up room and capital now, I think that's a good idea. Yeah. And the reason that's a good idea is because there will be different incentives and different loopholes and different new tax programs later that you can take advantage of when the government wants to incentivize a certain behavior. I have a friend, his name is Tom Wheelwright. He's kind of I think I know Tom. All right, cool. He's like the most famous CPA in the world. He's like the Elvis of taxes, right? And he will tell you that taxes are simply an incentive structure.
Yeah.
The tax code is there to incentivize certain behaviors. Right. Why do we incentivize real estate investing? Because people need homes and people need safe, secure homes that are affordable.
Yeah.
So we incentivize real estate investing to create more competition in real estate investing to drive down costs for individuals.
Yeah.
Why do we have some tax havens for businesses? Because we want more products and services. So we incentivize the things that create the most value if you have a government that is actually trying to grow. And so knowing the tax code is not just about protecting what you've earned. It's also to find out where there are incentives that make society grow, or at least what the government says our incentives are.
Absolutely.
And then using that as a guiding light for where we make decisions.
Yeah, absolutely bang on. Like electric cars, they want us to drive electric cars. I don't know about in the States.
Yes.
In the UK, 100% tax deductible. 100% right. If you drive electric. We just got an electric car, Mercedes EQC, because it's completely tax deductible. Even in real estate, it's interesting because in real estate, they've taxed the heck out of property investors over the last few years, but there's loopholes if you're doing property investing in a certain way, if you're buying through a company, and if you're doing the right kind of property investing in the way that they want, then it's fine. But if you're an amateur and you're not doing it through a company, and then suddenly you're going to get taxed to high heavens, and you need to understand the incentives of how they want you to, which presumably is going to mean that you're doing it better, you're adding to society, and as a result, you're paying less taxes. Everyone's a winner. So when people get really mad about rich people not paying much taxes, actually it's because we're just doing what the government wants us to do and following the incentives.
That's exactly right. And you don't get a bigger base of taxes without more good capitalists, without people creating more and working within the system to be able to follow those incentives and paying tax on those profits. Yeah. So you can hate on capitalists and entrepreneurs, but they're the ones driving change both privately and publicly.
Yeah. Who's would you say influenced you the most?
But at the same event where I met Grant, I met Gary Vaynerchuk. And I never expected to be so influenced by a man that I was so surprised by. He was not what I expected him to be when he was off stage. He was kind and humble and present. And this is back in the Crush It days when he was like, go, 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 crush it, kill it. He wasn't as big as he was now. But I found his presence and his focus and his kindness completely captivating. And ever since then, I have been a disciple of Gary's. Having dinner with him in April, I will do whatever I can to be around the man. He's 12 years my senior, 12 years ahead of me, and I am very, I am very compelled by his kindness and his empathy and the way that he creates that type of value for the world. So he inspires me to be better.
That's great. I like Gary. I've met Gary as well a couple of times. I went to his, what's it called? 4D.
Yeah, his 4Ds.
Yeah, I went to one of his 4Ds, so spent a little bit of time with him. And yeah, nice guy. Although I'll tell you something interesting about Grant. When I first met Grant, because I know Grant quite well, when I first met Grant, after watching his videos and seeing him, he's very aggressive on stage and he's, heavy and sell, I assumed I'm going to learn a lot from him, but he's probably going to be a little bit of a dick. And when I first met Grant Cardone, I thought he was the sweetest, kindest, most present. But I was shocked at how much time he had for me and how he just sat and chatted after the interview, and he was really connecting me to some people. So much so that, I went on some of his programs. I paid a couple £100,000 to get some mentoring and stuff. Wow. And I found Grant, to be honest, I found him. I don't know what your history is, but I found Grant to be...
I sadly didn't have the same experience. I've always kind of wanted a do-over with Grant because I very much respect what he does in the world and for entrepreneurs. But I sadly didn't have the same experience when I met him. I'll give you the quick story because we're dancing around it, right? So why not? I've told the story on my podcast. I booked Grant to speak before Grant was as big as he was now. I booked him to speak at an event in 2015. And Grant, to his credit, he promoted the event. He was incredibly kind and edifying in the lead up to the event, edifying of our process and our team. Found him to be very genuine and kind. We had 3 conversations about what we were going to talk about. And he said he was going to kind of customize it for that audience. When he got to the event, he was different. He was very different. He said some things that I didn't appreciate on stage, forgot all the talking points that we had talked about, and just said some things to me and my team that I didn't appreciate at all. Everyone else says that they had a very different experience with Grant. So I've always wanted sort of a do-over with him. And I'm sure he and I will cross paths on the stage scene at some point. Because I've always admired him and really liked his message and what he does to represent capitalists in the world. Yeah. So that's been my experience. You can tell I'm flustered a little bit talking about this because he was one of those people that I really admired. And when I met him in person, I didn't have the same experience you did, Sam.
Or maybe he had an off day or whatever. I guess everyone's human, but no, I've had really good experience. Sure. I think he's got a great heart.
And I'm sure there are people out there in the world who have met me in person and said, what a dick. Mm. And it could have been because of a bad day or because of something that was going on, or because
people have definitely said it
in the wrong way or whatever.
People have definitely said that about me for sure. 100%. But yeah, so yeah, Gary as well. Gary's a great guy, and it's good to have these people that champion entrepreneurship in the way they do. Another thing I have to say though, talking of online marketing and creating products, and Gary and Grant, and obviously we're also in the sort of similar space, I guess you could say, whatever you want to call influencers, bloggers, YouTubers, whatever. The industry of creating money and creating wealth, even though it's a very wholesome thing, creating money is a wholesome thing. It's a good thing. You said that in America, you said to me off camera that there's a little bit of negativity around money making, entrepreneurship and stuff like that. I think you said. I'm not sure if you said that. Maybe I misunderstood. In Britain, it's a whole nother level. In Britain, I don't know what. I've been to the States a few times. When I've been to the States, they love success. They love business. Maybe I'm just comparing it to Britain. You see those TikTok videos that in America, they'll stop people in the streets, man. They'll be like, "Cool car. What do you do for a living?" In Britain, that never happens. If you stop somebody, it never happens. If you stop someone You wouldn't be able to stop someone in a Ferrari. They wouldn't stop because they'd assume you were coming to hate on them. They would drive off. In America, it's like, you come over with the cameras, hey, dude, and they'll stop and they'll be like, oh yeah. In England, they would put their foot down. True story. I don't think I've ever seen a video in the UK, one of those, what do you do for a living? Nice house. Wow. What do you do? I don't think I've ever seen it happen ever in Britain.
Oh, wow.
Ever. So I think our industry does have some spammy, scammy, a lot of, I run a training company as well. So I'm a property investor. I also have a training company. In fact, we're the biggest property or real estate education company in the UK, probably in Europe. So, we have a lot of students, and we've got a good reputation. We're a very, very good company, and we absolutely go above and beyond for our students. However, the industry in general, the training, teaching people about money, it definitely does attract some very, sort of get rich quickie people that probably talk more than they've actually done, showing off fancy lifestyles, Lamborghinis that have probably been rented. You can do this too if you do my course type thing. And I am not at all against education companies. I mean, geez, I have one myself. I run an education company. But what do you think about that? Because especially as you're teaching people to market themselves online and create products, are you part of that problem?
I mean, I love that question. I'm open. I mean, people have accused me of that, right? And I love to field those questions. But the truth is, the scammy part of any industry is actually a necessary entry point into where the value is. Now, I'm not talking about scamming from a perspective of fraud. I mean, the hypey, fake part of things is actually often a first step into industries. Here's an example that will crystallize this. NFTs right now. Yeah. NFTs are a big speculative bubble. They're currently just crappy art pieces that people are flipping and trading. It's an asset bubble. A lot of it is going to go to zero. But this is a necessary part of the evolution of this technology. And that technology, NFT technology, will absolutely revolutionize everything that you and I do. Our membership programs will be NFT based in a few years. Everything that we purchase will be done on chain and will give us a record that will become an asset. It will absolutely revolutionize everything we do. This scammy period is actually part of what builds the foundation of that. Internet marketing was no different. There was a big wide open west of boom where there was scammy looking sales pages and easy money being made all over the place and gurus that came and went, but it paved the way for things like search engine optimization and customer relationship management and sales processes and webinars and education companies. Our education companies were a response to a demand for real education in a scammy world. And so there's always that speculative period followed by a legitimization of the industry. That's where I like to think that you and I play. And every time you and I make a mistake on the scammy side of things, our customers remind us and they push us back to why we are here and to what we are building. And it's our incentive now to build a better way forward. And the people who come after us, they'll be incentivized to create an even better way than we could. That's capitalism. It is the pioneering of new industries and then improving them over time. And so I sometimes get lumped into those scammy guys. I'll take it. It's part of the industry. It's part of the territory. When you put your name out there and your face out there and you say, I have something for you that will benefit you, you're putting yourself in the way of people accusing you of that. But it's our job to do it better and better.
It's interesting because some people genuinely, like I see in the comments, think that if you have a course you are a scam artist.
Yeah, sure.
It's like some people will watch me and they'll watch some videos and then they'll be like, oh my goodness, guys, I just found out he has a training course. I feel so...
I knew he was trying to make money.
Right, I feel so let down and disappointed. I thought this guy literally was doing YouTube videos and this, that, and the other, and now he's got a course. It makes everything illegitimate. Yeah. You know, some people think that for real.
And there are other people who have told me, hey, I love to follow you, but I stopped because you didn't have a course that I could buy that actually helped me do this. So it was like just about the you show.
Right. And
so you're never going to be able to please everybody.
Because when I started my training company, I mean, I was literally doing it for free from nothing else than the love, the joy, the networking. And it was only when people said to me, look, man, what we need, and they were then going off on other people's courses that I was like, that's not really a very good course. Actually, I'm disservicing these people by not providing a valuable A to Z step-by-step course. I'm actually disserving them. But there is definitely a lot of the Lamborghini sort of, nothing wrong with Lamborghinis, but I don't have a Lamborghini. I mean, I'm not a flash person. You don't seem super flash either. I've made a lot of money, and I make a lot of money in real estate, but I have a nice house. I have a Range Rover car. It massages me. It's got a fridge in it. But it's not like bling bling, you know. I don't wear jewelry. I don't wear bling bling type clothes. And I don't know how many do people actually buy into that? I don't know. I mean, but there is a lot of, you know, and I think there's a lot of people, you know, sort of around about 2019, 2020 that started calling out the fakers, but then realized that actually this is a really good way to get views. Because people love nothing more than loving the idea of how to get a Lamborghini. They also love hearing about the guy that is a faker. So suddenly you have all these people creating videos trying to get traffic, saying this person's actually a fake, this person's actually a fake. And I had people even doing videos about me saying, Samuel, they didn't know me, they didn't come on my course, but they were just saying, oh, actually he's a fake, look at this, that, the other. And I challenged them. I'm like, let's have a debate about this.
Sure.
I'd love you to come on my channel. And only one guy did.
Sam, there's this is gonna be the most controversial thing that I say in our entire time together. Are you ready?
Go for it.
The person who changed my mind on a lot of this was Tai Lopez. Yeah. So Tai Lopez, I knew Tai before Here in My Garage, before he had a YouTube channel, before he had a following.
Yeah.
And Tai was incredibly insightful and very smart before he was a guru, right? He was successful way before then. And when his audience just grew out of nowhere, when he just came out of the scene and exploded, I sat down with him and said, like, what did you do here? And he essentially said, I knew my market, which was guys who were under 25, mostly single. And I knew what would get their attention, which was girls and Lamborghinis. And so I used girls and Lamborghinis as a proxy to get them to pay attention to the message that I had for them. And knowing Tai like I know him, his life is what he describes his life to be. Yeah. And he is extremely underrated in our space. He owns Dress Barn. Yeah. He owns Pier 1. He owns everything. And he walks what he shares. Right. And so he adjusted my opinion just slightly on this, that sometimes going for the attention can be in service to some people. Not everybody. It's going to turn people off. There's plenty of Tai Lopez haters, which is great. Like, they'll follow you and me. Yeah. But Tai serves his audience in a very unique way.
But Tai, though, I don't know Tai personally. I don't know him well. But Tai will also happily have debates with people about what he's done, about his programs. And I think I did watch a long time ago. I did watch one. He was like, yeah, come on. And he brought some online hater on his show. And I thought respect, because, you know, for me, I think That's really important. Being able to debate your point. You know, if you found some cowboy on Instagram that was saying, I've got this, and he wasn't the real deal, would he really voluntarily have a debate with somebody?
Right.
No, he wouldn't. Right. So for me, I think that's quite a telltale sign of whether someone is legit or not. It's like, how long have they been going? What have they actually done? Have they got success students? Will they publicly debate about, you know, I think these are all good signs, but there are bad in the industry. But I guess, as you said, that's kind of the evolutionary part to anything good. And with any industry, you've got good and you've got bad. What's your reasoning? Why are you doing this? Why did you agree to this interview? Why are you pushing capitalism.com? What's the underlying reason?
It's my genuine belief that entrepreneurship and capitalism is the most effective way to create change. It will always be this way. It always has been this way since the advent of capitalism. And so the pursuit of wealth, the entrepreneurial journey, is a proxy to create better people, to create better products, to create more service to one another. And I believe that it's the most loving system, the most creative system, the most abundant system. And we never need more government. We need more freedom and more capitalism. And so I love hanging out with other entrepreneurs who are doing what you and I do, of helping create change through freedom and through capitalism.
Awesome. Well, on that note, we'll wrap up because we've been going a long time. But but Ryan, I really appreciate your time. Anyone watching, I would highly recommend checking out Ryan's website, capitalism.com. I'll leave a link in the description.
Can I give one quick plug, Sam?
Go ahead, bro.
So we spent a few minutes at the top of the call talking about that formula of 4 products, 25 sales a day, $30. That's $1 million business. That is most of our work at capitalism.com, is helping entrepreneurs follow that process. So if you heard Sam say that you need to have your fast cash and your slow cash, and real estate is your slow cash, it's your long-term play to produce passive income and long-term wealth, but you're saying, what is going to be the entrepreneurial side of this that is going to be the business that pays me that I can build and sell? That's what we help people do. Best place to start is my book. You can torrent it. If you can buy it on Kindle, I don't care. Steal it from the library. It's called 12 Months to 1 Million. And it's about plugging in that formula. 4 products, 25 sales a day at a $30 price point.
12 months to 1 million.
That's my book.
Good goal, good title, good book. Damn, I'm inspired just at the title. I think that's...
Done hundreds of times. $1 million business in 12 months. It can absolutely be done.
Amazing. Well, Ryan, we'll be sure to check out the book. I'll leave a link. I'll leave that in the description as well. And thanks once again for your time, and look forward to hopefully doing something again real soon.
Great to see you, Sam. Thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate you.
Peace out.